All right, thanks so much, guys. Yeah, we're going to talk a little fintech today and the fintech industry overall. We're thrilled to have Devie Mohan with us, co-founder and CEO of Burnmark, a fintech-focused research firm from over in the UK. We appreciate you doing this, Devie. I know it's a busy time and a busy day for you, so we appreciate your time. Let's jump right into things. Maybe give yourself a little bit of an introduction here and tell us about Burnmark overall.
Absolutely. So Burnmark is a fintech research company. We focus on fintech trends and use cases from around the world. So we look at data from around 85 countries, so quite a global view of what's happening in fintech. And one of the things that always interests us is what are banks doing with fintechs, with participation and collaboration in the sector. So that's what we do at Burnmark. I spend a lot of time researching, of course, speaking about these trends, writing and teaching. So it's a wide variety of things that we do.
Including some time at Harvard. Tell us about how the fintech industry is being approached at a school with such a stature as Harvard.
Oh, absolutely. So I teach the short-term fintech course there, and it's a case study-based approach at Harvard always. And the lovely thing about the case studies we use in the course is that it's very global again. So we have case studies from China with Alipay, for example, all the way to some of the things happening with the lending market in Europe. So we cover a wide variety of segments with those case studies, and the focus is always on industry points of view and the knowledge that it's not one point of view that's actually going to work in that market. It's a collaboration of different points of view, and that's what we get from the students, and some of them are absolutely fantastic.
With the pandemic, we've seen a lot of changes as far as this industry is concerned, as far as touchless society, touchless payment methods are concerned, which is going to be huge in the long run for fintech-focused companies. What have been, some of the bigger trends that you have come across over the past year and a half now that we've been involved in this when it comes to the pandemic?
I think fintech is no longer a new industry. I think it has matured to the point that the amount of investment going into it is several billions of dollars compared to the last few years. And the biggest trends, of course, last year, as you rightly mentioned, was about touchless or cashless payments. And it varies from country to country how that happened. It happened early on in China, early last year, end of 2019, with a lot of the cash removed from the economy. And a lot of the focus was on completely non-physical modes of payment, like mobile phones and QR codes, and not even using cards. The same moment came to Europe and the US later last year. But the focus was slightly different in that we use a lot of debit cards and credit cards and websites like PayPal for those transactions. So each country approached this cashless movement in a completely different way. It's very interesting if you look at Latin America, for example. 13 million people used a card for the first time in March 2020. So the amount of impact that COVID had and the behavior of consumers, it's been absolutely tremendous. So that is one huge trend, of course. And there are a lot of other trends that we see as well with ESG, the ecological, the environmental, social, and green focus on investing, for example. The funds focused on ESG have performed extremely well last year compared to regular funds. A lot of wealth going into retirement funds and a lot of wealth being transferred last year. And a lot of that focus was on green funds. So that was definitely a big trend. And I would say completely correlated to COVID as well. And the third big thing I would say is a lot of new regulations came about. This is probably not something we talk about a lot in the market, but a lot of privacy acts came about, especially in the US with California, Virginia, Colorado, and New York trying to come up with new regulations around data security and privacy. And this has wider impact on the banking and fintech market as well.
And we should talk a little bit about, and it's very interesting that you mentioned the regulatory side of things, but property technology in general has seemed to not only explode over this past 12 months or so, but it's been around before that, but we've really seen more attention focused on property technology as well.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how it is in the US, but in London, we have a huge property bubble going on thanks to COVID and some of the new policies around removing stamp duty. And one of the interesting things, we saw property tech or prop tech come up as a huge market in the last 1 year. And this is kind of unheard of in the past, the amount of investment that has gone in from banks and investors and new startups coming in. So I think that's going to be a tremendous focus over the next 5 years. And property tech involves everything from construction technologies to the building materials and the way that's being handled now, almost with completely new technologies, all the way to owning the house, managing your house, renting it out, and managing with smart devices in terms of energy and other channels in your house. So all of the aspects involved in owning and building a house is property tech, and everything is now focused on technology. We have a lot of AI, a lot of blockchain being used in these technologies as well. So it's kind of a correlation of COVID in a way, and the way the policies have changed. A lot of people moving from city to city last year, but also it's due to the technological maturity that we have from fintech and other industries that have come into prop tech.
And the obvious question then becomes, Devie, what do we see this, continue, or how do we see this continue going forward as this pandemic, seems to be kind of lingering here and will for, the foreseeable future? Where do you see these trends going? As investors, we always want to be looking down the road as to what will be the next technology or what kind of trends we should be keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. I think all of these trends are here to stay. I think consumer behavior change is hard to come into the picture. So out of the 13 million people who have taken new cards, they may not continue using cards all the time, but we can expect maybe 20 to 30% of them to have long-term behavior change. So if you look at all of these trends from that point of view in terms of long-term consumer behavior change, I think payments and digital payments, the use of digital bank accounts and digital channels for your bank account is something that will have an absolute lasting impact. And I think that will last for a very, very long time. I think the interest in ESG funds, the green funds, is again, it's just starting. And I would say Europe is slightly ahead of the US from that point of view. So US is not quite there. But in the US, 50% of all investments last year was on ESG. So it's a substantial number we're talking about. And I think it will come to the US in the next few years. And probably Japan and US at the same time. In terms of property tech, I think, again, it's a big trend that's beginning to happen. There is, of course, a bubble in the market now, but I think this is definitely a trend that's going to stay as well. And I would definitely say keep an eye on a merger of health tech and fintech that I'm beginning to see happen with insurance and digital devices and wearables being used to monitor health. So all of those kind of industry collaboration happening between health, insurance, and fintech, that's going to be something really big to watch out for in the next 5 years, I think.
Devie Mohan, co-founder and CEO of Burnmark, fintech research firm over in UK. We appreciate your time today. Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you so much.
We talk about a lot of fintech companies, guys, on a daily basis. There's an insight into how this pandemic has affected them and will going forward.